Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us already. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials, every single one, in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, your very sad host, Dino DeCespedes, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I am feeling fantastic, my good man. I commiserate with you. I'm sorry that happened to you. We'll talk through it. This will be a therapy session.
Appreciate that.
But it doesn't change the fact that we are so back. We're back. We couldn't possibly be more back. We got to watch Champions League football, and I believe each of us watched roughly 360 minutes each of Champions football, 180 minutes each evening, and that was quite nice.
Yeah, I think I might have logged a little extra time there as well. But yeah, we are definitely back, max back, all the way back. I know this is a formality. I'm going to do it anyway. Mr. Grant Engel, where would you like to get started?
I'd like to get started by cracking a beer.
I'm going to crack one with you.
I think you should. I'm glad you are.
As one Stugat says, softens the blow.
Always.
Cheers.
Okay. Cheers to you. Where do I want to get started? Oh, crap. I'm going to screw up the intro. Can you just give me like 1 second here?
Sure.
Yeah, I just got to take care of something real quick here. Okay, sorry about that. So, I think I'd like... Let me make sure I got that in there. Okay, yeah. So, I think I'd like to start with Manchester City Football Club 2, Barcelona 0.
I love it. Let's go.
Says Man City on the
look
sunglasses.
incredible, by the way.
Appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
You got some Macho Man vibes going on over there. So huge win, obviously. I kind of want to clear out here. My first takeaway, the City started fast and they kept playing fast.
If you watched the first 45 minutes of this match and didn't have prior information, you would leave saying Manchester City is decidedly a better team than Barcelona.
Might be true. Might actually be true. I mean, I think one thing you think about is like sneaky, a lot of turnover with this Barcelona side. You know, you think about like Irene Paredes not in the starting lineup, Badiuelo not there, Caldente not there, Paior in, she looks incredibly fast.
Yes.
Incredibly scary. They couldn't quite get her going. And I think you also need to throw Giraldes in there as probably like one gigantic missing piece that was not there. And they just don't look as cohesive. It doesn't look like it's coming so easily. You got to give City credit. I think defensively they were really good. CGH, she hits the post in the 4th minute.
Yeah.
With that warning shot early, just to kind of remind everybody that they're there. But threatening wise, it didn't seem like there was a ton there to be afraid of, which was a shock in and of itself.
I'm glad you mentioned that CGH shot, that warning shot in the 4th minute. It's off one of those weird angle runs that you have pointed out early in last year's Champions League, where they like come running across the pitch and you're like, oh, they can't really do a ton from that. And then CGH is turning and firing a missile on goal.
Yeah.
Should have been a corner kick in that situation. Yamashita clearly had her hand on it before it went out. But you know what? We'll take it. That's fine. Goal kick it is. But like seriously, though, I will say, yeah, City looked like the better team in the first half. And I say, if you had never had any other prior information, you might think City is decidedly better. We do have prior information. Barcelona is still absolutely stacked. We'll talk about them in a little bit. You talk about City dominating that first half. Viv Miedema, Jess Park, Mary Fowler, just absolutely excellent, getting the ball up the pitch. Mary Fowler's passing in the first half was just pinpoint. She was doing everything right. Jess Park looked fast, confident. She was sure of every move that she was making out there. And then you talk about the defense from left to right, Kasparai, Greenwood, Leah Alexandri, and Naomi Lazell. Lazell obviously playing a huge factor in the first half goal. That back four plus Yui Hasegawa just kept moving Barca into areas where their shots weren't quite as dangerous as they usually are.
That's a great point. And I think it does kind of connect to my earlier point about who's missing there. Because usually you get that ball into a danger area and then either it's like Badiuelo with her back to the goal that you could kind of feed it back into, or Caldente out on the wing, or you can kind of recycle it. And then Patri is maybe a little bit deeper and she's going to let one. But it seems like their attacks only got like 70 or 80% of where they got last year.
Yep.
Just in the terms of like number of passes and just kind of like how deep they were able to push. I'm glad you bring up Naomi Lazell. This is only her third appearance for City.
Wow.
So she comes over from Bristol City. She's 20 years old, playing against Barcelona. So her first Champions League action. To do that and then to be able to notch an assist on Bunny Shaw's second. I mean, come on. I mean, I think like Bunny looked great acceleration wise. You know, she didn't look blazing fast at the start of a run, but when she hit top speed, like she cooked Batier on one. Like it was clear, like she's faster on the field than she is on tape. I think if you're one of those Barcelona defenders, and then on top of that, Bunny Shaw is basically a world-class center back for anything aerial coming into the box when she's got a chance to stand there and set up. What an incredible advantage to basically close the door on something that maybe Barcelona was going to try to look to maybe sneak one in.
100%. I mean, she was clearing it. It felt like she was getting onto any corner kick that Barcelona had. You heard our pal, friend of the show, Chris Sharples, the legend.
Let's go.
He said, headed away by Shaw, like at least like 4 or 5 times off of corner kicks. She was everywhere. But we have to say, when the second half started, I had a sinking suspicion. I know it's easy for me to say after the fact, but I would be surprised if a lot of football fans didn't think watching that match, Barcelona's hasn't had their full say here yet. And they came out in the second half absolutely on fire. Their high press started to work pretty well against City. City could barely hold the ball. Barcelona had 61% possession in the second half. They had 13 total shots to 2. They had 3 shots on target to 1. Now, obviously, the Bunny Shaw shot was on target and it landed. So there's a big difference there. But still, I mean, you know, they completed nearly 100 more passes in the second half. That's a dangerous, it goes without saying. That's a super dangerous Barcelona side. They kind of started to get their wits about them in the second half. But again, credit to that back four. Yamashita in goal. She had some kind of nervy moments back there in both halves, really. You know, Barcelona could have scored in this match. But the fact is that they didn't. And now they have to kind of go back and regroup. And let me ask you this, though. If you're Barcelona, isn't it kind of easy for you to say, okay, Manchester City is a top side. We know what time it is there. They're one of the better teams in this competition, roster-wise. It's their first time back in the Champions League for a while. Emotions are running high. The crowd is super into it, and they're at home. You know what? Fair play to you. You win this one. We'll see you guys, obviously, right before we go to the knockout stage, but then we'll probably see you in the knockout stage.
They could say that. I think that would be not the most responsible course of action, because I think they got beat pretty handily. And shout out to the color commentator on the match, whoever was a kind of running point alongside our guy, Chris Sharples. But she was mentioning that Manchester City was playing so hard and chasing so hard that she was like really questioning whether or not they were going to be able to uphold that for the entire game. And the reality is they played harder. And I think that was led by one Lauren Hemp, who was an absolute goddamn maniac out there, like chasing everything and just making sure that City's presence was felt. I think City was the better team. I think City could push Barcelona even away.
Wow. It
really comes down to, and I kind of want to have a conversation really quick about Barcelona manager Pere Romeu, who, according to Wikipedia, is either 30 or 31, who replaces Jonathan Giraldes, who's 32. I kind of feel like maybe this is a little bit of arrogance from the Barcelona brass to just be like, yeah, we just manufacture young 30-something managers that are geniuses that know more about football than anybody in the world. Like, I know that they probably weren't going to go get a Bon Pastor or, you know, obviously Emma Hayes was going to be off the market. But if you're Barcelona and you are at the very mountaintop, don't you at least say what's possible here? Or it's just like, okay, no, it's not quite next man up. You know, it's like, well, for them it was literally next man up.
Yeah.
But I think when you watch them on the field, they don't seem to have great ideas. I still kind of think Alexia and Aitana, the chemistry, not totally there. Like, I think when they're both on the field, it just feels like Aitana's a little bit less effective, maybe deferring a little bit to Alexia. It's like they clearly have not figured out how they're going to attack. I think that Barcelona team that we saw loses to 2, maybe 3 teams in the field with a performance like that.
Wow. Okay. It's bold, my good man. I mean, I'm really interested in the idea that Alexia and Aitana, they don't totally look cohesive. I think I'm in with you on that. I think Aitana seems to look a little lesser than we saw her just when she was an absolute maestro in some of those matches before Alexia came back. I got to say, though, buddy, Alexia looks great out there. Size, speed, smarts. Jesus, there were several moments in that match where she's running toward the 18 with the ball. And I was like, well, this probably isn't going to end great for us. I will say, like, there were also stretches in the match where I was like, where's Bo Matip?
Yep.
So I think that's an interesting point. I mean, this all tees up Barcelona at home, Hammarby coming to town, riding a little bit of wave themselves. It very quickly, for me, turns into maybe the most must-watch match of match day 2. Because you got to think, wounded animal Barcelona with all that talent. And I get what you're saying about the coaches. I think that is a pretty established thing on both the women's and the men's side. I think it is just a Barcelona football culture of you came up with us, you're in the system, you know the way we play. So I think it's absolutely worth a question of like, is there brain drain? Do you have to look outside of your company, of your club to find that next manager? We have to see a lot more. So that's a question worth fair. Asking. But I mean, it's super valid to ask, though, because there were stretches there where they looked totally out of it. But I will still say to the Barca fans, MLS, you know you're still our guy. I'm not giving up on – I mean, I know you're not either. Nobody's giving up on Barca, just to be clear. But if you're City, you got to celebrate this. And it's worthy of celebrating because Barca is so great.
Absolutely. You mentioned that Barca team. They're back in action next week, Wednesday, October 16th, 3 p.m. Eastern. Hosting Hammarby. That one should be a banger. I want to fast forward though. Let's crank the happiness meter down pretty much all the way to the min. Bayern 5, Pernille Harder 3, Arsenal 2.
Fair
what
enough.
A fucking disaster.
All right, we can just end the visual gag. Plus this scarf is making me a little warm. I was not thrilled when I saw this. Oh yeah, to let people behind the curtain. I mean, obviously, Dino and I live in America. It's a no spoilers world that we're living in. Shout out to our guy. You can remain unnamed. One of me and Dino's guys almost spoiled the City result for me. I started to open his WhatsApp and then immediately closed it. It was like, oh no, he's gonna spoil that for me, and it almost got me. Because the match happens in the middle of my workday and I had like very serious things going on. And I was like, okay, I have to watch this match later. So I almost got spoiled, but obviously you know who you are. Appreciate you for checking in, but
shout out.
I digress. You let me cook. I was not thrilled to hear about the result. What did you see in this Arsenal match?
Yeah. Well, first off, I was right there with you. Zero dark spoilies mode. We had the Hurricane Milton hitting Florida. That made it a little tricky. So your boy caught a few of these on a little bit of a delay. But before we get into Arsenal Bayern, I want to reach back into our comments section from last week. We had a few of our great friends of the pod chime in, and these friends had quite a bit to say about my Arsenal. So I want to kind of give our friends a little bit of shine. At Teacher for Life, quote, Arsenal will lose or draw against Bayern, end quote. Teacher for Life also had some really nice words about the show, so I appreciate that. At TCN8202 also had some nice words about the show, appreciate it. Who the hell is Arsenal? In the women's game, they are still yearning to be as relevant as they were back in the 2000s. Their first English test this season was against Man City. Not convincing, period. Second test will come against Chelsea on October 12th, period. If that's our second test, I don't even want to know what this Bayern match was. And the third comment I want to mention, our guy, Carlo Wilson. Latrobe, PA. Population 8,060 as of the 2020 census. You already know.
Arnold Palmer.
Quote, please don't be angry, Dino, but Arsenal might not get out of the group, end quote.
Wow.
I mean, I got to say, reading those words really, really hurt, but they were absolutely fucking true. We stink. There's a really good chance we're not going to get out of the group.
Oh, my goodness. All right.
This one, a tale of two halves. The first half, Arsenal outshoot Bayern 5-3. Shots on target 4-3. In the second half, Arsenal gets worked like a speed bag. Bayern outshoots Arsenal 10-4. Shots on target 7-2. And I think the turning point for me, and I want to know if this kind of hit you in the same way. 56th minute, there's a Bayern throw-in to pretty much no one in particular. The ball bounces right in the spot in between Kim Little, Leah Williamson, and Leah Valti. The ball is just bouncing around, and Clara Bull just picks it up right in stride. And I kid you not, her first touch on the ball, I muttered under my breath. I was like, oh, fuck. Like, she's 55 yards away from goal, but just the visual of all the Arsenal defenders just bumping into each other like this was an episode of, I don't know, the Flintstones or something.
Right.
I just thought that was such an ugly, such an ugly display of defense that I was like, I just got immediately terrified.
Again, to let folks behind the curtain, so people who've been following so far, I've been assigned groups B and D, Group Bravo and Group Delta, if you will, if you're into that kind of thing. Those are the 4 matches that I watched. And then I catch the highlights. And then obviously Dino is covering Group A and Group C, Group Alpha and Group Charlie, again, if you're so inclined. So I watched the highlights of this match. So I couldn't tell in real time, but when Lohman scores that goal and they go ahead 2-1, to me, it's a great shot by Lohman, beats the keeper near post. It's low. It has great velocity. It didn't feel like a total killer to me, but I'm missing the context in between because I'm just watching the wonderful highlights that DAZN provides. They're like the 8-minute sections. Did it felt like a killer to you in the moment?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. In the highlights package, they don't show the throw-in.
Right.
So the highlight just picks up from Bull running up the field, yeah. Like straight galloping, finds Lohman. Lohman smashes it, and it looks like just a ho-hum. But when I tell you this throw-in, 4 players should have gotten to it. And then when Bull catches it in stride and is just sprinting, Codina and McCabe are still behind her. They're still in defensive position. Somehow, McCabe takes a terrible angle because she makes a play on the ball, towards Bull, even though she's 2 defenders away. It was just an absolute shit show.
I see.
When I zoom out, actually, I'm going to go to something real quick. I need to show you this graphic. So I grabbed a screenshot. I never ever do this.
Let's go.
So to give you the context here, I'm leaking confidence at this point. Now, I'm going to show this to you, and I want you to tell me what kind of defense you think Arsenal's running here.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yes. We call that the U10 soccer. Everybody stand in a cluster defense. I've seen this. I've been a part of this.
What am I supposed to even do with this?
Yeah, that's
what
tough.
Do I do with this? Well, I mean, this is an embarrassment. And I think when you watch it, this is just a still. That image encapsulates the throw-in that I'm talking about, with everybody just kind of standing around, looking the wrong way, going the wrong way. I encourage you to go back and kind of like watch the 30 seconds that preceded the Lohman goal just to kind of see this. But it just felt like Arsenal kind of lost their will. And with every Bayern goal, Arsenal just felt further and further out of the match.
Yeah.
And I think when you think about the makeup of a championship type team, Barca falls behind, you see kind of like how they respond. Arsenal was up in this match. They were even at halftime. Like they were kind of like on the level. And I think they just kind of wilted. It's hard really not to think about Jonas Eidevall and what exactly the adjustments are. I kind of read them up top, like the difference between the stats between the first half and the second half.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like there was a single adjustment made, and I think even when Bayern are starting to put together some offense, they looked great in the second half.
Yeah.
No adjustments. The starting lineup was weird. Alessia Russo not in the starting lineup. Beth Mead not in the starting lineup. Cooney Cross, Ruben Moy. Like there was a lot of shakeups, and Eidevall is like also switched keepers too.
Yeah.
He's gone from Zinsberger to Von Domselaar. Watching that second half was kind of like when you watch that beach house on stilts.
Yes.
And there's hurricane coverage and you just kind of see it swaying and you're just like, okay, this little clip is going to end with this house floating into the ocean,
Yeah. Never
never to be seen again. That was kind of what it was like watching, Arsenal just basically fumble away the second half of this match and get off and basically almost, I don't want to say derail this group stage campaign, because we did mention this was their toughest match, hopefully of the 6, but just not the way you want to start.
Sure. I concede that totally. -3 goal differential, start with a loss. But, it's an away match at Bayern. It's your return to the Champions League. We've talked about the value of like, have you played in the Champions League before? And obviously a lot of your players have. Bayern looked really good from the attacking standpoint that I saw, kind of helped out by some of those defensive mistakes by Arsenal. I think it's early. I think it's really, really early to start the doom and gloom for your Gooners. Lohman's goal after halftime, that's a pretty big power punch. And Codina still comes back with a nice header to bring you guys level, to get you back on 2-2. Pernille Harder, have yourself a day. You get a Hattie in the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes of the match, essentially.
Yeah.
That's hard to come back from. The Vigo Stodier goal to
good Lord,
bring things level. Climb the ladder. Climb that Icelandic ladder. I know I'm separated from it because I don't follow the club like you do. I won't lie to you, buddy. It wasn't great. You got a lot of time to make this stuff up. You got too many. Like, Mariona looked really, really good. And even though maybe like Kim Little and like Stina Blackstenius, at least from what I saw, it didn't look like they played very well. You still got Katie McCabe there. You have this core of players who are going to be able to kind of look at each other and be like, all right, that went poorly. We're going to circle the wagons here. Every single sports cliche you've ever heard. We're better than this. We know we can be better than this. Let's get this thing back on track. And they're going to go against some teams that I think they'll have the ability to get things back on track against.
I'm rocking my Orlando Pride shirt today. Congratulations to the Pride 2024 NWSL Shield winners.
Let's go.
The story of their season has been intensity. That is definitely not what we saw from Arsenal. The intensity. I mean, I think McCabe had definitely some moments. Alessia Russo, when she came on, played really hard and was a shot in the arm for that squad. Outside of that, Kim Little, huge struggles defensively. The whole back line struggles defensively. Stina Blackstenius, you mentioned it's a tough spot for her. She's an offensive player. Glódis Perla Vigastotier, a defensive player, and the roles reversed on that Vigastotier goal. But like you said, Vince Carter, Frederick Weiss climbs the ladder, just bullied. And I mean, Vigastotier, she's capable of that. She's a wonderful player.
Oh, yeah.
And I really do think we talked about that Champions League experience. You mentioned it. Arsenal have players that have played in this tournament before, but Bayern has that extremely sour taste in their mouth from last Champions League season. Talked about them being one of the 3 revenge tour teams. And I feel like Arsenal missing a little bit of that institutional Champions League knowledge as a unit. So we have good players. McCabe played really well, 2 assists on the day. Mariona played really well. Plenty of touches in dangerous areas. Mm-hmm. She gets the goal. It's funny because McCabe to Codina almost cashed early. And then they figured it out the next time around for the actual second goal. So that was really great. But outside of that, I mean, no other team in the group stage gave up more than 3 goals, and this is a team that you're supposed to be at least at the level of Bayern. And it's not like that's a cauldron to go in and you're like, we can't expect a result going into Bayern. Almost every group of life team last year went in there and had a little bit of success. If you look at just the second half, I feel like Arsenal actually played worse than the scoreline, if that's possible.
Wow. Okay. It's bold. You're in a dark place right now. I'm sorry I'm sorry this happened to you.
Giant swig of beer incoming.
Yeah. You know what? You got to go through the stages of grief, my man. But there will be days ahead for the squad to redeem itself.
Here's hoping. So one of those days ahead. How about October 16th, next Wednesday, Arsenal, they'll be at home hosting Vålerenga, 3 p.m. Eastern. Feels like a pick'em at this point.
All right.
Let's go ahead, though. Let's jump over to Group B. I want to talk a little Chelsea-Real Madrid. Group stage rematch from last season ended in a draw when these 2 teams met last year at Stamford Bridge. They run it back to open up this year's Champions League group stage. Chelsea 3, Real Madrid 2. What do we need to know about this one?
So I want to set the scene first. Chelsea's last match prior to this was on September 27th. It was a 7-0 away win at Selhurst Park versus Crystal Palace.
Mm-hmm.
Sonia Bonpastor had some feelings about their canceled match versus Manchester United, which was, I think it was scheduled for either Saturday or Sunday before this Champions League fixture.
Sunday,
yeah. And I quote, this was in a pre-match press conference, I believe. Bonpastor said, quote, "We were disappointed as players and staff," speaking of the cancellation. "I think everyone has to understand we were supposed to play." She went on to say, "We were in a very good team dynamic, and I think not having the opportunity to play changed everything in preparation for the game with Real Madrid. When you have the opportunity to play 1 game a week, with this decision being made to postpone the game, now we have been out of competition for 10 days, which is completely different. If you look at the situation, the decision is not good. I think it is not good for all the English clubs who are in the Champions League competition." End quote. Sounds like Sonia Bonpastor is a fan of Into the Channel and wants to have a rest versus rust discussion. She was clearly concerned about the rust, but you know what? Maybe she just got the benefit of the rest, because Chelsea started that match and they looked super fast and they looked super decisive. And Johanna Rytting Kanerud, she is a fucking nightmare out there sometimes for the opponents. Like when she took the ball on that first goal and she is flying up the right-hand side, she stops on a dime to get the ball on her left foot to play in that pass to Shoka Nuskin to get the opener 2 minutes in. I was just like, hey, Sonia, don't worry about the rust. The legs look fresh right now.
Absolutely. I mean, mostly the same roster makeup from the Chelsea side.
Sure.
Really kind of like Bon Pastor is like the main injection of like, okay, some variance here. I was also excited about Real Madrid because to your point, obviously JRK, shot out of a cannon, Nuskin puts Chelsea on the board. Last year's Real Madrid side, I think maybe we see a different kind of response, but they're a little bit more weathered, a little bit more mentally tougher, I would say, going to this tournament.
Yeah, and they had an opportunity to kind of give up and maybe just kind of start parking the bus and just hope to hold it to like a 2-0 loss. Like when the penalty comes in like the 27th minute, which I was like okay with the penalty. Like I could have lived without it. You had two players kind of challenging for the ball, like two players kind of high kicking a little bit in that spot in the box, either trying to win the ball or clear it. So I could have gone either way on that. I don't think it was an egregious penalty call. I do know that Guro Leighton's penalty was a laser into the bottom corner.
Oh, yeah.
So you go down 2-0 in that spot. You're less than a half hour into your Champions League. Real Madrid had every single reason to be like, Jesus, we are snake bitten in this tournament. But here's the thing about Real Madrid. We're talking about Real Madrid in the Champions League. They believe, doesn't matter if men or women, this is supposed to be our trophy. It's our birthright. We're Real Madrid and this is the Champions League. So I thought when they were able to pull it back, you had a great line, and I know people have used this on other players, but you described Alba Redondo as a professional goal scorer. That goal she gets before halftime, where the ball's kind of bouncing around and she's able to real calmly get it under control, blast it into the bottom of the net. You pull one back before halftime. That's professional goal scorer type of stuff to kind of settle things.
Absolutely. And I think that's the benefit of kind of going after players from different backgrounds that have played. Obviously she's got, national team experience as well.
Yep.
And that's why you sign her.
Yeah.
Like any ball that finds Redondo in a dangerous area, I mean, you already know mentally she doesn't even need the green light. She already knows internally she's got the green light.
Always.
That's basically, I mean, they were missing a lot last year, but that's a big, big component of one thing that they were really, really missing. Obviously, like they were so dependent last year on Olga starting the offense from way, way, way deep and just basically trying to pull all of the strings, cover the whole 100 plus yards of the pitch.
Right.
But having Redondo in there just to kind of like flip the game back your way, which is not something we saw last year from this side.
Yeah, great point. And, you get to go into halftime. It's like, okay, everybody regroup. We're back in striking distance. And then they had another opportunity to kind of pack it in and give up when I will say there had to be a bit of a defensive lapse because the amount of space that Lauren James had to serve in that cross in the 53rd minute after halftime. You could be closing Lauren James down and she will hit a perfect cross. She had about 6 or 7 yards of space to hit that cross to Mayra Ramirez, and Ramirez hits a really genius kind of looping header. Misa Rodriguez is like in an awkward spot to try to she's falling backwards, diving, trying to get to it. Perfectly executed by LJ and Mayra Ramirez. Now you're down 3-1. What kind of mettle do you have? Can you pull it back again? And they're able to do it in the 84th minute. And this is what I love about group stage football. That still matters. Changing your goal differential from -2 to -1, that's absolutely massive. And to have the mentality, you're at the bridge and you need to, at the very least, you feel like, can we pull one back? Not only to see if maybe we could do something miraculous and get the equalizer, but just to kind of level set ourselves. I thought it said a lot about the mentality of the Madridistas, and I like them. I like it for them moving forward.
Absolutely, yeah. And as you mentioned, Caicedo gets that goal, makes it 3-2. Pretty much the resolve that I wished, Arsenal were able to kind of summon late in the second half.
Sure, yeah.
Didn't see any of that. But, that's also a byproduct of kind of like as a unit coming together and being like, okay, this is not happening again. So who knows? Next year might be Arsenal's year.
If I could point out one more thing that I thought was pretty interesting, something to monitor. In the 89th minute, Felipe Engeldahl for Real Madrid fouled the shit out of Lauren James. And it wasn't particularly a dirty foul, but it was an intentional foul. LJ kind of sat there on the ground for a second like, well, what the hell is that all about? And I just think there's no love lost between this Real Madrid side. And I know Engeldahl played for Manchester City last year, so it's not like she's like deep embedded in the rivalry. But she knows what time it is. She's a good veteran, a smart veteran player. And for them to kind of be like, you have to pull us off the field in this last game. Yeah, we're going to lose 3-2, but we're going to be here the whole time. And some of those Madrid players still remember seeing Lucy Bronze in those Barcelona colors across the field. And now she's playing for Chelsea.
Totally.
I cannot say enough. I liked Madrid's attitude in this, and I think it will bode well for them going forward.
I totally agree. And I'm a little bit of an absolute dummy. I knew I was missing somebody when I was rattling off those Barcelona players that were so pivotal last year that didn't appear this year. Lucy Bronze got to be in that mix as well. I think they really missed her. Just let's mix shit up kind of energy where it's like, oh, now I'm up here, now I'm back there, now I'm in the middle. It's like she'll just kind of spring up anywhere, wherever the action is. And I thought she looked really good for Chelsea as well.
Oh, yeah.
Next week, Chelsea on the road. They travel to the Netherlands to take on FC Twente. That one going down Thursday, October 17th, 3 p.m. in the late slot. Switching gears back to Group A. Lyon 3, Galatasaray 0. This one, I was excited about this one. And even though it wasn't totally in contest, I feel like it kind of delivered.
All right. I'm glad to hear you say that as a person who watched the match. I saw the highlights of this one, knowing this was your turf. Can I just ask a question? Does Tabitha Chewinga look faster than she was in last year's tournament somehow?
I think tough to say. I think the jury might still be. In that match, she looked faster for sure.
Super fast.
Now, I got to imagine if you're Galatasaray defenders, again,
you're not seeing that.
No way to simulate that speed in traffic. It's just going to be a problem on that day. And the numbers bore it out for sure. Lyon outshot Galatasaray. Get ready for this. 40-3.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's a normal thing.
Big day. Shots on target, 16-2 advantage. Gala put 2 on target. There you go. Mm-hmm. In the 18th minute, they showed a graphic showing the possession stats, 66-34 in favor of Lyon. And I thought 34 was extremely generous because I think to that point, I think I can only remember barely double-digit touches for the Turkish side. So I thought that obviously Chewinga, who you mentioned, looked great as part of that front three. And I think that front three, Diani, Melchi Dumornay, Tabitha Chewinga, can make a claim to the best front three in the world, in my opinion. They're just devastating. Chewinga and Melchi are athletic marvels.
Come on.
And then you have Diani, who has the craft, who can score from pretty much anywhere that a human could score from. Yes. She has that skill set. And they were incredibly productive in this one. So Diani managed 10 shots. Lindsay Horan, Captain America, managed 7. Melchi Dumornay notched 6. Chewinga only 3 shots, but 2 assists for Tabitha. I want to hit you with a quick Lindsay Horan NBA comp. I think at this point in her career, she reminds me a ton of Phoenix Suns' Chris Paul.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I can see that. Kind of like, I'm in control. I know where everybody is. I'm not dazzling you with athletic ability compared to some of my teammates, but I'm moving the chess pieces around.
And that's exactly what she did.
Yeah.
She looked great. She was in dangerous areas. She was distributing. She just seems to be more involved in the Lyon offense, which is really, really cool to see. One other quick note on the subs that Lyon was able to bring on. How about this for for 5 subs? Sarah Daberts, Sofia Huerta, Ada Hegerberg, Damaris Egarola, and Amel Fifth Gear Marjorie. I'm working on that. working nickname.
I like it.
She just comes on the pitch and she's just full speed.
I love her
and
so
she can
much.
Still kind of drop into 6th gear when the situation calls. I thought Galatasaray defensively, they did play hard. They were super engaged, as mentioned, and they were extremely busy. 12 interceptions, 6 blocks, 11 saves from their keeper, Gamza Yaman, 57 clearances, and they had to defend 502 Lyon passes in their half.
Oof.
So they earned their paychecks this week for sure.
Absolutely. Let me say quick shout out to DAZN because the Amel Majri Call Me celebration is in the build-up package, the video package. Those are 5 pretty good players to bring onto the field, I would say. I'm going to venture to say they would probably start for several teams in the world.
They might get some starts here in the group stage later on.
I believe it.
All right, looking ahead, next week, Thursday. Oh, this one's going to close the week as well. I think, you mentioned Barcelona Hammarby. How about a little Wolfsburg hosting Lyon?
That's good.
Thursday, October 17th, 3 p.m. shout out to DAZN. What a luxury for us to be able to kind of catch all these games live or on replay, avoid the spoilers. I made the mistake on Wednesday of trying to get to YouTube. I had a couple of Wednesday matches spoiled for me. And that was a little bit of a bummer. But for anybody that's in zero dark spoilies mode, like your boys tend to be from time to time, just go to DAZN's website. They do a great job of keeping things under wraps. You could just kind of go in there blind, watch the match, no spoilies, and really enjoy it just as if it was in real time.
Yeah, and it's in beautiful high definition. You know, when we were in the qualification stage of the Champions League, there were some dicey streams that were being used in those points. That were, I will say, I'm no visual medium expert, didn't appear to be in high definition. So it is nice to watch these matches on DAZN. Real commentary, cool pre and post game and halftime, analysis interspersed. DAZN obviously crushing. And Wolfsburg Lyon, I think we're going to talk about the German powerhouse here soon, but you make a good case. If I'm talking about Barcelona, Hammarby, Wolfsburg Lyon, that's going to be important.
Totally agree. Can't really go wrong with the entire slate. I do want to scoot ahead though. Also in Group A, how about this for a result? I kind of feel good. Well, I kind of feel good. And
you should.
I sort of cheated a little bit. I mentioned last week, wouldn't be shocked if Roma was able to get past Wolfsburg in this one. And I mentioned a few weeks prior, I had Wolfsburg penciled into the group stage. So I had all my bases covered, we'll say.
There you go.
But I think my more recent prognostication, I think, came true here. Roma 1, Wolfsburg 0. I just thought Roma played a Roma-type game. And I think in my head, when I was thinking about, I think Roma can get a result here, that was the kind of match that I was thinking. Real scrappy. Wolfsburg did have chances. They did put a couple balls onto the woodwork. But ultimately, the Manuel Giuliano penalty becomes the difference in the match. A little sidebar. You mentioned Guro Reiten tucking away that penalty. We talked about Lindsey Horan too for Lyon. Manuel Giuliano.
Awesome.
How many players would you rather have stepping up to a penalty? Because first of all, she fucking blasts it every time. And she's so ice cold and she's so precise. I think she might be at the very top of my list in the women's game of somebody that I feel the absolute most comfortable stepping up and just burying it in a tough spot.
Ooh, that's a great question. I think our pals, our friends who are watching this program, please let us know who we might be missing. Can I submit from your Orlando pride, the legend, the greatest of all time, Marta, who scores the penalty to seal the NWSL Shield. She's a great penalty taker. Can we throw out Alyssa Nair? She's an incredible penalty taker in world football. Yeah. You mentioned Horan. Guro Reitens was a laser. But yeah, I mean, Giuliano, from what we've seen in these past two Champions Leagues and from what we've seen in Serie A, trying to make sure we do our prep, she's absolutely in that conversation. No doubt about it.
I was a little worried about this Roma side. They had fallen down to, they're still in fourth in Serie A Femenil.
Yeah.
They're 6 points behind Juve already and 8 goals behind in goal differential. So they're off to a very slow start. And this clean sheet versus Wolfsburg, their first of this season.
Impressive.
Good time to kind of dust that one off. Wolfsburg did kind of win some of those counting stats. Obviously, they outpossessed 58-42. Not the biggest shocker against Roma, but they did outshoot the Italian side 23-13. Shots on target, though, even 5-5. To put 5 on target out of 23, that's a little tough from Wolfsburg. I think you can look at their two wingers, Lynette Bjernstein and Sveindis Jonsdottir. Only one shot attempted for Bjernstein, 0 for Jonsdottir, and neither of them obviously put a shot on target. So that's a little tough, from your wingers. I think you're expecting a little bit more in a match like this. But that Roma side, they just make it very, very difficult. You look at Linari, you look at Minami, Camelia Cesar, that's just the way they play. And I think they want to steal one, they want to steal two, and they want to just kind of shut down your water.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, that Italian style of play, that catenaccio, as they call it over there, we're going to pack the box, we're going to make things difficult. That works. Can I just say about Camelia Cesar, add her to the list of Serie A players who have easily fooled me, this dope, into thinking they're Italian. I mean, her name is Camelia Cesar. She's Romanian. For sure thought she was Italian. And so it's Evelyn Viens, Giulia Grosso, and now Camelia Cesar. I see it players playing in Serie A, and I'm like, surely is Italian. Do they play for the Italian national team? Nope. Romanian.
That's a learning podcast.
It is.
Evelyn Viens All-Stars. Welcome to List Committee, Jason. Wolfsburg, not quite at Arsenal levels of ring the alarm, but, and this was going to be a tough match one way or the other.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you are Wolfsburg, you got to be a little bit disappointed considering how you came in, considering the expectations, considering your historical resume in this tournament. Do you feel like they should be mentally in a place where they need to kind of like catch their breath and reset, or is it just going to be kind of business as usual?
It's so tough because now they have to play Lyon, but they're going to be home versus Lyon. You could make the case that their second most difficult fixture is coming up because obviously their most difficult fixture is going to be at Lyon. They just have so much quality. I think if you're them, you kind of look at it similarly to maybe the way Barcelona looked at it, where now for Barcelona, we were away at a good side and we lost a match and we played pretty well and we probably could have scored a goal. If you're Wolfsburg, you say, okay, we held the ball, we played away. Roma has more recent Champions League experience, obviously, whereas Wolfsburg got bounced by Perry FC last year. So you could probably look at it and say, like, okay, we lost one that we shouldn't have lost, but you don't get any respite. Now you have to play Lyon. So yep. I will agree. I'm a Wolfsburg believer. I stand by that. I'm not hopping off the bandwagon just yet. I think they're going to be fine, but it's a tough spot. You at least need to have a very good performance against Lyon. Even if you lose it, I think you need to at least look pretty good.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And the points start to become a factor because obviously you mentioned Wolfsburg hosting Lyon. That's going to be a tough matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they happen to drop that one to Lyon and they're sitting on 0 points, 4 matches to go, looking at last year's standings, Group C was the group that sent teams into the knockout stage with the fewest amount of points, which was 10. So let's just say 10 is the minimum. Oh, I'm sorry. Benfica had 9. So let's say 9 is the absolute floor and you need everything to break your way.
Yeah.
If Wolfsburg drops this one to Lyon and then has to go to Lyon, they could be on the brink. I think all these teams that lost match day 1 are in the same boat where got to get a result here. I think even a draw, it's a point for you and it's a point for whoever you're battling in the standings. That's valuable. But I think anybody that goes down 0-2, you really have to catch fire in the back half of the group stage to have any kind of chance.
Yeah, great point, man. It makes it even more important to try to hold serve at home versus Lyon. No easy task. I do also want to point out we have 4 former winners of this Champions League trophy in the tournament. Wolfsburg lost, Arsenal lost, Barcelona lost, Lyon won. Looking at 1 and 3 for the former winners coming out of this match day 1, I don't think anybody would have predicted that.
Definitely. I mean, we would have got tremendous odds on that. I want to pull a couple more data points here. I mentioned this last week and I actually went back and checked it. I had predicted that the goal differential for match day 1 would probably be less than last year.
Yeah.
So I actually went back 2 years. Match day 1, 2022, the aggregate goal differential across the 8 matches, 24 goals.
Okay.
So roughly 3 goals was the average across 8 matches. 24 goals 2 years ago, 19 goals last year, 15 goals this year.
There we go.
So that's a 21% drop. The field getting closer. And it's not just the goal difference because, Barcelona went from obviously winning to now -2 and losing. So it's like, to your point, all those champions not having the success that a champion would necessarily expect. But I do think the field's getting tighter. Teams are catching up. Players are catching up. Tactical. And I think it's being reflected on the pitch.
100%. That's such a banger of a stat. That's why you're the stats guy. That's why you shouldn't be too down about Arsenal. You'll be crunching the numbers. They'll be crunching the numbers. You'll be back in this thing in no time.
I appreciate it. Thanks, buddy. I'm going to always count on you to lift me back up.
That's why I'm here.
Let's shift over to Group C. Vålerenga hosting Juventus. This one was a fun one. Vålerenga early, I thought they looked really great. They looked bigger. They looked more organized. They looked more professional. Ultimately, this one ends 1-0 to Juventus. Big 3 points on the road. Only adding a little bit more doom and another couple dashes of gloom to my Arsenal hopes for them getting out of the knockout stage for Juventus to be able to go on the road and get 3 points here. I think when the moment called for it, they stepped up and basically did what teams that make the knockout stage do, grab their moment.
Yeah, man. I mean, Vålerenga beats Juventus in possession 58-42. They beat him in total shots 25-14. They beat him in shots on target 7-4. And they had 2 big chances to Juventus's 1 big chance. All of those stats courtesy of our pals over at FootMob. But Juventus beat them in the most important stat. Bangers. That Cantori strike. Absolutely phenomenal. From the left side of the box, Cantori is able to just hit an absolute missile, side netting. Only place she could have put it probably to really beat the keeper in that spot. And Vålerenga, it just looked like there was a lock on the goal. They had a lot of chances where it looked like, okay, this is it. This is the one.
Yep.
And it just didn't happen for them. Again, that Italian catenaccio, the door lock, that'll just come up and bite you sometimes. I'll say, though, man, Vålerenga looked good.
They did look good, and they get a chance to bounce back. They get the wounded Arsenal. North London. I'm just like full on. Just Arsenal Vålerenga happening next Wednesday, October 16th, 3 p.m. Eastern. And on the flip side, 12:45 p.m. slot, Juve host Bayern Munich.
Oof.
Going to be some bangers.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
A couple of small clubs.
Absolute Group C. This is just some Group C bangers next Wednesday. Very excited about that. Let's scoot ahead, though. A couple more matches to hit. Sliding over to your side of the pitch. Hammarby 2, St. Pölten 0. What'd you see here?
Let me throw a scenario at you. A Nordic team that we don't know a ton about heading into the tournament scores 2 goals in a win in their opening group stage match versus St. Pölten. Sound familiar at all?
I feel like I've heard this one before, yeah.
Make no mistake about it. I will never leave you, Braun Battalion. I love you more than anything. Thank you all for always rocking with us, of course. But man, I got some interest in this Hammarby side. Now, obviously, they play in Damallsvenskan. Braun is in top Syrian, so I don't think I'm crossing any real lines there. But, dude, this Hammarby team, I like the way they play. Vilda Hasland hit a just absolute laser beam into the bottom corner of the net. It was a beautiful setup. Vangerheim just kind of like lays it off to her. She's like just like a step or two inside the 18, plays the pass perfectly to just kind of like, okay, you're running onto it. I'm just going to leave it for you. And it was a great call out by the announcer to mention it was Hammarby's first ever goal in the UEFA Women's Champions League group stage. I thought that was a great moment. This Hammarby team, tough, and it's not just all defense. They have a lot of skill and smarts and scoring ability up top.
Yeah, you had pointed us in the direction of Katinka Tamberg.
Good.
I think a couple weeks back.
Yeah.
And that is a real player.
She's very, very good.
Absolute handful. Really, really good. A nose for the action.
Yes.
Like, as soon as like the intensity starts to ratchet up, it's almost like she just kicks it into gear and is going to work harder than anybody on the pitch and is going to just, I don't know, like just try to flip the game. She's just like a game flipper. And I just kind of like love her energy and made a big difference in this one for sure.
No doubt. I do want to call out our pals, St. Pölten, STP. They had an equalizer right there for themselves in the 64th minute. Valentina Model puts a peach of a cross right into the danger area. Dubkova, who was involved in a lot of action for STP all night, she just couldn't get it on the end of it in the middle. And then Peckel has it bounce to her, and it just hits her right in the knee and goes out of bounds at the back post. It was a big chance. Laura Harvey, the manager of Seattle Reign FC, always says this in the post-game press conferences: goals change games. Which I think it's a simple saying, but if they get that equalizer there, who knows how this thing shakes out? The whole dynamic would have changed. But I just think Hammarby, they just keep coming at you. And to your point about Katinka Tamberg, she gets a great entry pass from Asato Miyagawa to kind of play her in. And Tamberg's just, at least from what we've seen of her, and again, we're not claiming to be total experts here. It's hard to watch Damallsvenskan over in America. But Tamberg never looked like she was going to miss that chance. No. And from the matches we've seen her play, exactly to your point, she's a game flipper. She's a game changer. 20 years old.
Holy shit. Didn't know that.
Let me just say.
Learning podcast.
Yeah, come on. I mean, and speaking of learning podcasts, Katinka, if you ever watch this, Seattle is a beautiful place to live. There's the mountains. There's great food. You can get to the city. You know, if you're ever interested in scoring goals for Seattle Reign FC, come on down.
North London's a little closer.
Sure, that's fair.
Seems reasonable. Big 3 points for Hammarby. Needed that one if they want to maintain their chance to get to the knockout stage, which I think they did what they needed to do.
Yeah.
And they got a good result. Barcelona dropping points. And a chance to really, really make some history next week when they visit Barca.
Oof.
3 p.m. Wednesday, October 16th. That one's going to be a banger, as mentioned. I think that was on the top of your power rankings in terms of matches that have got you excited. Another one up your alley. Wednesday as well, 12:45 p.m. Eastern. This same St. Pölten side hosts your Manchester City Sky Blues. Let's not hope for a letdown there. That'd be big time to go into the reverse pivot against Hammarby on 6 points. Any early kind of preview? Did you see anything from the St. Pölten side? Do you think anything that SCP is doing could give City problems potentially?
I think they hung tough. The thing that really surprised me about the match, and this is kind of what, I know I make the Braun comparison because obviously this is a Braun podcast, but the thing that surprised me was Hammarby played that match like, hey, St. Pölten, you're just not on our level. Like, we're just going to dominate a lot of facets of this game. And what I love about St. Pölten, though, is that they still hang super, super tough. Like, they'll be physical with you. And Dubkova is a real player. Looked really good in spots. They hang about as tough as they can. And it's tricky because, St. Pölten ends up with 17 shots and Hammarby had 18 shots. But the difference is that Hammarby still had 7 shots on target. St. Pölten only had 1 shot on target. And they never really looked, aside from the big chance they had that, Peckel hits outside of the post, none of their shots look super dangerous. So I don't think a letdown is in the cards for my Manchester City Sky Blues. But, you got to travel to Austria. You got to see how things play out. So we don't take anything for granted. I'm going to do the Pep Guardiola. They have a great coach. They have a great team. We need to go in there and take them seriously. It's business as usual.
I like it. And I like how St. Pölten's played this year. I think they look a little friskier.
They do.
A little bit more energetic, a little bit more engaged, a little bit more threatening.
Yeah.
To your point, they weren't able to put a ton on target, but I think it's definitely a team arrow pointing slightly up, we'll say.
I like it.
One more match to hit. Group B, Celtic 0, FC Twente 2. Okay. Big 3 points for Twente. What'd you see in this one?
First things first, over the broadcast, over DAZN's airwaves, sounded like a goddamn proper football match. The chanting, the singing. You saw the flag waving from the ultras on the home end. I love the atmosphere. Celtic sings You'll Never Walk Alone before the match starts. I thought that was cool that DAZN brought that in. Early player to watch from Celtic, Shannon McGregor. She had 4 passes into the final third. She was really good on a lot of her set-piece deliveries. I like her craft. I like her passing. But Twente, they dominated the ball in the first half without feeling super dominant. But they really kind of just over the stretch of the game, they just wore Celtic down. Celtic wasn't able to really get anything done in the final third. And as Twente kind of just kept like wearing them down, we get into the 44th minute. Dutch left back Liska Carlier. She plays a long aerial pass right over the middle. You could tell Twente was just setting Celtic up to kind of hit that long bomb, that Hail Mary, throughout most of like the first 40 minutes. Carlier, she's able to connect. Kaylee Van Doren, who has just looked great in qualifying. She hits a genius chip over Celtic's keeper, Celtic's American keeper, Kelsey Doherty. The chip looks like a pop fly, and it just falls beautifully into the net. I want to do a quick side note on Liska Carlier. This 23-year-old, she's not just a great passer out of left back. She has her master's degree in clinical exercise physiology. I do want to say it is from Arizona State University. So I do want to point out that maybe a master's degree from Arizona State might just be 4.5 years of seeing how many vodka Red Bulls you could drink while playing golf. But I digress. No, Liska, seriously, no disrespect. I just thought that was super cool. Educated in America. We can always make our jokes about Arizona State. And you know what? In the spirit of Arizona State, I'm going to crack a late beer ski because the fucking Champions League is back, buddy. All of that to say, I think Twente is even a little more dangerous than I originally gave him credit for.
I agree with that. This is a team that obviously won Eredivisie Vrouwen last season, and they played like a championship side.
They did.
Like, they played like champions. They played like, no, this is trust the process, and we're going to walk out of here with 3. So obviously Group B, Chelsea, Madrid, probably, penciled in, maybe light pen, maybe like a 0.1 or 0.2 thickness.
Sure.
Written into the knockout stage. But I do think Twente is going to really push them. And I think for that to happen, going to Celtic, picking up 3 points, knowing that Celtic's going to come back our way, that could potentially be 6, maybe 4. We'll see. Like I said, Twente just feels like a championship side. I think Vålerenga had a little bit of this as well.
Yes.
Like they know what it takes to win. They might not win every game, but they know what it takes to win. And they know if they're losing, they know why they're losing. And just to shit on my Arsenal side one more time.
Wow.
Arsenal was losing, had no clue how and why they were losing. They were just totally scrambling. But I think these two sides, Twente, Vålerenga, have a little bit of that winning DNA that sort of is a prerequisite for getting through the group stage, getting into the knockout stage. So Twente, absolute team to watch.
Totally agree, man. I think Celtic held as tough as they could. I think it's hard to say this one match in because, I'm telling you, like, please don't overreact. You're not listening to my advice whatsoever as an Arsenal fan. That's fine. I understand. Obviously, Barcelona fans, no need for them to overreact. Wolfsburg fans, don't overreact. With Celtic, I liked the way they played. It feels like there's a little bit more of a maturation process for them to play like Champions League football. But I want to give their supporters credit. Couldn't tell if they were singing the exact words or if it was just the tune. But when they were down 1-0, whatever chant they were doing was to the tune of "Don't Worry, Be Happy" by Bobby McFerrin. Funny 90s song, funny song to sing when you're down 1-0. And obviously they're just enjoying Champions League football. Something tells me those Scotties may have had 1 or 2 drinks before they showed up to the football match. Hard to say. I also just want to point out real quick, 23-year-old right back, Lyon drives the ball down to the end line for Twente and then cuts it back to Van Doren, who just hammers the ball home for the dagger to end it, to put it 2-0. Kaylee Van Doren, she looks really smart in like getting into space. She looks really under control. Van Doren last year, according to our pals at FootMob, she had 9 appearances all season in Eredivisie Vrown and 1 goal for Twente. This year for FC Twente, 8 appearances and 9 goals in league play. So she is coming back and cooking. And I mean, she just looks like one of the leaders of the team. I'm really interested to watch her play as the group stage progresses.
100% agree with that. And I like your Celtic call out too. I think this is a team that is going to play tough. I mean, obviously they're champions as well. I mean, the group stage has a way of really separating the wheat from the chaff, the contenders versus the pretenders, whatever two subsets you want to kind of like juxtapose against one another. The Champions League group stage absolutely does that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why we see, some of these legit champions need to, go through that maturation process, like you mentioned, and others basically able to ride that DNA to real results. Either way, I mean, these are some of the best teams in the world. I can't believe we got 5 more group stage matches to go.
Let's go.
Extremely excited. Quick programming reminder here. We will be back after match day 2. We're going to break it all down. We're going to do a little bit of a preview for those match day 3 and 4 reverse fixtures where things start to get a little chippy. We've already got those matchups on the calendar. So excited about that. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
We covered it, buddy. The Champions League couldn't be more back, and we're back. What a time to be alive.
I love that you phrase it that way because I want to give a quick shout out to at 10 Minute Success Story on YouTube, who commented on our last UWCL video, quote, "We're back." Celebration emoji, celebration emoji, celebration emoji, heart, end quote. So shout out to you at 10 Minute Success Story. We are back. God damn, let's fucking go.
Damn right.
At Morton, you already know. At MLS Architect, who you mentioned earlier. At Michael Cockane, 1246. That's our guy.
Chief.
Boy named Blue. Not a bot, by the way. At Michael.
Damn right.
Very important distinction. A real person. At Blade Runner, our guy. You already know. Omar Bakrouni. He's back. We've gotten the band back together, man. I don't know how else to put it. Like everybody's just as hyped as us. We're all excited. I'm going to try not to let my Arsenal doom and gloom sink the rest of this Champions League journey. I'm not going to let that happen. This is elite football. Our people are excited. We're excited. It's going to be an absolutely great tournament.
100%. And there was something that came over me while I was watching Manchester City Football Club get that great victory over Barcelona. when I was watching that back four, Kasparai, Greenwood, Alexandre, Lazell, plus Yui Hasegawa, and I was just inspired watching them play. And I thought about the words of the late, great poet, Earl Simmons, also known as DMX. Get at me, dog, because that's how they were playing. And now that's how I feel about this tournament. And let me just say, that hunger, that's what comes with the Champions League. Like we've talked about, a celebration of life. We got 5 more weeks, like Dino said, of the group stage. Then we get the knockout stages. Then we get the final. We're back. This thing is here, and we're glad that you guys are here with us.
100%. All right, man. With that said, I think we did it. This has been another episode of Into the Channel. Sincere thank you for watching, listening, following, liking, subscribing, just plain hanging out with your boys, and leaving comments. We definitely appreciate that. Remember to like if you liked, and subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grant Engel. He's got that championship DNA. He's going to give it to you like our guy Earl. Fucking go. I appreciate you, man.
Likewise, buddy. You know what? Why do we rob and steal? Why do we podcast? Not because we want to, but because we have to. Thank you guys for rocking with us. We will see you next time.
Art.
Nicely done.